I am joined by Siwei. Siwei is a sports content creator and commentator, and she's also a lawyer based out of Chicago. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we're going to start with an icebreaker. I'm going to ask you, who would you have taking the winning shot, WNBA edition?
Okay. All right.
All right, so first up, Arike or Cop?
Arike.
Arike or Fee?
Arike.
Arike or Asia?
Asia.
Asia or Stewie?
Asia.
Asia or Rakia?
Asia.
Asia or Alyssa Thomas?
Asia.
Asia or Caitlin Clark?
Asia.
Asia or Paige?
Still got to go with Asia.
All
It's
right,
tough
last
once
one.
Asia gets in the mix.
Yeah. Asia or Kelsey Mitchell? Last one.
That's a good one. I'm gonna go with Asia still.
All
Got
right.
to go with the
Yeah,
best player in the world. Have to.
absolutely. Now we're gonna get a little bit into your background. So as I mentioned, you're content creator, sports commentator, as well as you're a lawyer.
Yes.
So when did you start making content or videos online, and what was kind of the motivation to start for you?
Yeah. So I started about 2.5 years ago. I kinda did YouTube in a completely different space on, like, doing panels about actually reality TV, and so something completely different, and so people have been pushing me to, get my own channel, do my own things, but I just didn't feel really drawn to do a channel based on that, and, it was, like, right before the Olympics, and it was a little bit before the Olympics, and I've always loved basketball. Basketball is, like, it's always been my heart. And so I just started making videos about basketball. It was the NBA, it was the WNBA. Um, and then when the Olympics rolled around, I made a lot of content about the Olympics and some track and field. And I discovered I'm like, wait, this is like a niche for me. Like this is actually something that I really enjoy doing and that people seem to, be receptive to the work that I'm doing. And so yeah, it was really just natural, just making videos about basketball because I always loved basketball. And then I kind of focused in on women's sports just over time. It was just naturally something that I felt like I gravitated more to, specifically the Chicago Sky and stuff here in Chicago. But all of the W is just something that I was just really passionate about. So it kind of all like organically flowed together. So
Nice.
um,
Yeah, I like what you said about like it just comes naturally to you and you have fun with it. Because I feel like
yeah,
when you're making content long term, like the goal should be to have fun, or you're like kind of gonna burn out and just not enjoy it.
right. You have to enjoy it, and people have to feel like you're doing it organically. It's not
Yeah,
a force. And I think because everything kind of just like flowed the way I kind of got into it, I just didn't force it. It kind of just came to me and I really enjoy doing it. And people around me encouraged me to keep doing like, you're good at this. Keep going, keep going. I was like, okay.
that's
Um,
nice. Yeah.
yeah.
That
So
kind of like outside validation and support is really helpful, because sometimes it's like we're just making videos, in our room, and we're like, is this doing anything? Like, what
right.
is this, accomplishing? But it is really good to get great feedback. And yeah, I love your stuff. I love the way you articulate things.
Thank you.
And obviously your law background is extremely unique,
Yeah.
and super, super helpful. And we'll get into that as well. But for viewers, you have any quick advice for like kind of what does well for your content, or like what kind of, when your videos perform, what do you think it is that, makes them do well?
Yeah, that's a good question and something that I think about all the time. I think a couple of things. When you have community, when you're posting on TikTok, Instagram, you don't want to just be in a silo. You want to actually be an authentic community with other people. So you're able to see different topics and figure out where you can kind of add your 2 cents. And so videos of mine I think do really well are either topics that my peers or people I'm in a community with are already talking about. That may not be on TikTok, but it may be on X or it may be on Threads. There's something that's already moving that I'm able to add my 2 cents to. And sometimes movement all moves together. So if I make a video, you make a video, sometimes people think like you're taking from each other. But in the world of social media, you're a lot of times you're adding to each other. And so I think it's viewing your peers not as competition, but as ways to inspire each other because sometimes our videos all move together. So I think just not working in a silo. um, and then for me, a lot of my videos, some less now than before, are based on things that are breaking early and things that are happening early. And so I do a lot of keeping my nose or keeping my eyes on what's actually going on. And so a lot of times if you're one of the earlier people to actually report on something, your videos are going to do well. And I would say lastly, being authentic and filling a gap that's not there. I would say the converse to actually building with the community is making sure that you're also adding something new to your community and filling a gap that's not out there. And so whether your channel is providing information that's not out there or whether you're providing a unique perspective that people haven't heard 5 billion times, I think it's figuring out where the gap is and then filling that gap. And sometimes they won't do well. But you do it because it's authentic to your platform, and I think the more and more you try to fill gaps and continue to fill those gaps, a lot of those videos would do well. So that would be my advice.
Yeah. No, I love all of that, and I love especially you touching on community, because I definitely feel that within the women's sports space
Mhm.
specifically, I feel like there's definitely more community. We're all, like,
Yep.
engaging in each other's content, supporting each other, giving each other advice, which is a really great part that I wasn't necessarily thinking when I started making content either, but it's been really, like, wonderful to just, like, meet new people, make new friends.
Mhm.
I used to never have, like, online friends, and now I have a whole a whole bunch. So yeah, that's been a really cool part about the journey.
Yeah, I mean, I've even had people who would some of my mutuals who turned in like friends where I have their numbers. They're like, "Hey, this isn't my normal content, but it's yours." And they'll send me something, or
Yeah.
vice versa. Or someone will ask me a question like, "How did you get into this?" And instead of being vague, I tell them exactly how I got into it and how they can do it too because the more the merrier. If I have a brand opportunity, who how did you get in contact with that brand? Did they come to you? I'm always
Mhm.
forthcoming, um, because I just believe, what God has for me is for me, and I try to share as much as I can and be authentic with the people around me, and I think that that really has worked out.
Yeah, definitely, uplifting others, not gatekeeping information or feeling like, "Oh, like, if this person has this opportunity, that means I don't have it." Kind of
Right.
that old mindset, or I don't know about old, but negative
Mhm.
mindset, absolutely.
Right.
And then I also like how you touched on breaking news, because I do feel
Mhm.
like that is really important, and you definitely break on stuff very quickly, because that's either I'm hearing
Right.
it first from you, or, like, I had just seen it, and then I open TikTok and your video is the first one. So that's definitely key, but obviously, like, it could be challenging too, right? If you have, like, a full-time job,
Right.
or just with life and everything. Do you find any challenges with that? It seems like you've found a good routine that works for you to just kind of break news as soon as it drops.
Yeah, I've actually found a lot of challenges with that. And I think a lot of people have asked me, like, how do you do these things? I know we may touch on this later, how do I do everything? And it's not easy. There's definitely have been phases where I've been able to dedicate more time to try to stay up on the content, the breaking news. And I've had other phases where I'm like, I have to dive more into my legal work. I have to pay more attention to my full-time job, or I also coach. I had to dedicate a lot of time to coaching. And so I was kind of quiet over the last couple of months. And people are like, oh, we haven't seen you. It's because I was coaching and you cannot do everything well at the same time. And if you try to do
Mhm.
everything well at the same time, something is going to fall. And so, yeah, but definitely during phases like during the summer, I really honed in on, my platform and breaking news and things like that, and during, the transfer portal time, I tried to really hone in during that time because I know people were looking at me for who's transferring, who's being terminated, things like that, and so I give little pockets of energy, and if I don't always have it, then I don't have it. But yeah, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time, especially when you're working. And most of us are working full time. So
Right, yeah, I would say most of us, it's like creating content isn't the
right,
full-time gig, but going back to what we were saying earlier, it's like you really have to love it and enjoy it. Because even if it's like, "Oh, the last thing I wanna do is make a video," it's still something that you care about and you're passionate about, and it'll translate,
right.
in the videos. So you do a little bit of reporting for the Sky, or you've been invited to some W games to do some media.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience and what that's been like for you?
Completely different worlds. Completely different world. I have to say, as a person who I've been an attorney now for 5 years, when I switched over to reporting, even though I'm still an attorney, but when I like picked up reporting and did the Sky for the first time this summer, and I covered lots of different teams over the summer. It was a great but humbling experience because you're now stepping into a lane that there's people who've been doing this as their full-time job, or there's people who've been doing this as their part-time job for a really, really long time. And so it was definitely a learning curve. You're in Rome, you're trying to do what the Romans do. You're trying to figure out, how do you ask the questions? How do you tactfully get your questions asked in scrum? And scrum is when, for the viewers, when you're all kind of you see reporters in a huddle and you have your, microphone trying to ask your questions. You're figuring out what you can report on, what's inappropriate to report on. How do you navigate, asking players for interviews? How do you navigate forming relationships and play with players, but also being objective? It's interesting. It's definitely interesting, but I gotta say I've met so many amazing people here in Chicago, the people that I covered the Sky with and people that I met all throughout the country. If I was going to Barclays or I was going out in LA to crypto or wherever I was going, the new people that I met that have were so nice enough to be like, "Hey, look, I'll tell you this and this and that," and they'll take me under their wing. They explain so much to me, and I'm just so grateful. But it definitely was an interesting experience. But I enjoyed being the creator of the content versus sometimes on TikTok we're taking content that in crediting, right? But you're taking the videos and taking the sound bites from the reporting that's on the ground. I really enjoyed actually being the source, like being on the ground and being the source. So much fun. So much fun. And much respect to all of the reporters, all of the journalists who are on the ground working, getting the videos, getting the interviews. It's tireless, sometimes it's thankless, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a lot of different things coming at you, and yeah, navigating being on the ground sounds challenging, like you said, because it's like you wanna be respectful of the players and you wanna figure out, where you can land in the
Mhm.
space, but it sounds like a really cool experience, and it's always great, yeah, when you have people around you who are willing to, answer questions for you, tell you some do's and don'ts, but, I mean, ultimately, you're just gonna learn on the job. So now we're gonna get into your law background. We mentioned a little bit earlier you are a lawyer.
Yes.
So did you always know you wanted to be a lawyer, or and can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
I always knew. I was like the kid that literally always knew. Um,
Yeah.
I do think post-college, I went through what a lot of kids go through or young adults go through where you're trying to make sure that you know. And so I did other things and I went to teach abroad and I did some work for the government and all of those things that I did kept on pointing me back like you need to go to law school. This is what you were meant to do. This was fun, but it's time to go. And so after college, I took 2 years off, went to law school, went to Wisconsin, go Badgers. And it's been definitely a great ride. I work in civil litigation primarily, but I've done everything. I've done like bankruptcy restructuring. I've actually worked for the state's attorney's office, as a prosecutor, so I have a criminal law background as well, real estate, and now I'm trying to move into the next chapter of really merging my very diverse background and kind of merging that with sports. And yeah, sports is kind of like the umbrella, but it's not its own subject matter. And so whether that's working with athletes or working in their arena, merging my background to maybe solve some of those needs that they may have legally. And so that's where I'm moving towards. But yeah, it's been great, and I've always known I wanted to be a lawyer, never any doubt. So much so that I actually help young attorneys coming behind me. become lawyers. I have a non-for-profit that I don't talk about much on my platform because it's kind of relevant to what I do on my TikTok. But yeah, I also help students behind me through the pipeline through mentoring and yeah, because I just
That's
want to make it
amazing.
easier, a little easier than I had it. Things that you don't know, mistakes that you make. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's been good.
Yeah, that type of guidance can be life-changing for young adults, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that was gonna be one of my next questions when you said that you wanted to, kinda move into law within the sports world, because I know there's a lot of opportunities there, and I don't know if you would go this route, but, I'm pretty sure agents, right, typically have a
Mhm.
law background,
They
which is
do.
something I didn't yeah, which is something I didn't know, but it makes sense.
Yes, so
Um
agents need, I guess, some form of master's degree, and so many of them have, a law degree because why that's the best thing. You're negotiating contracts, and that's definitely something that I've been very open to. So I'm leaving so many things open. I think this year is gonna be kinda a year of just figuring out how all of this merges together. I kinda have a lot of things in different pockets, and I'm really excited about things merging together on its own perfect timing, and I hope that it all works out that way. Because I don't think you in life, these experiences are not for no reason. I think you kinda
Mhm.
everything in life is for a reason, and you get placed in different pockets for a reason to learn something, and so I'm excited to see what I was supposed to be learning and how it all merges together. So
Yeah. I love that mindset. And
mhm,
it sounds like you have all the pieces, and yeah, it's just a matter of them coming together and remaining patient and doing the work. So I definitely see that coming to a reality for you. So I'm excited.
thank you. Me too.
All right. So now we're gonna get into our basketball topics.
Okay.
So the first one is WNBA CBA negotiations. So this is something that you have covered quite a bit. And I think a lot of people, again, they really enjoy your background in law,
Mhm.
your just genuine love and passion for the sports, and your support for the players. You give a really unique opinion, and also just like you really break down the facts in a way that's easy to digest. So where we're at right now with the negotiations, it seems like everything is still pretty much being talked about,
Right.
definitely delayed, stalled, a lot of back and forth, but we have reached a point of more, intense talks, right? Because the time is out at this point. They used to say it's running out, it's out now. There's likely gonna be a delay. So what are your most up-to-date thoughts, opinions on the negotiations?
As of Sunday, they are still negotiating, so I thought they were gonna take the weekend off. I didn't I was like, "Oh, they're there on Saturday, okay." But the fact that they're there on Sunday means to me that they fully understand that time is out, and so, going into Monday, I mean, the fact that these women, the WNBPA, have been there, and I know the WNBA side is there as well, but every single day, hours on end to get this done really underscores the seriousness and the urgency of this. And yeah, as far as the most recent updates, it looks like they were over the last couple of days, were hammering out other issues that they can really lock down and try to get the stuff that they do agree about and can agree about early. And so today, from what I'm hearing, is it's going to be a lot of player housing and the revenue share issue. And I'm not sure that they're gonna be able to figure that out by today or by tomorrow because I know it's really touch and go. But I do like that it appears that they really knocked out some of the other ancillary things, and so now they're moving towards the big button, big ticket item, which is interesting. And the information that came out, the numbers that were being reported, didn't seem much better than some of the numbers that were being reported before. And now that makes sense. The fact that, today is the day that they're really hammering that out. From the reports, it looks like they were still at what they're calling 15% gross revenue, 70% net, based on the numbers that I know the W is providing. And I know that's far from what the players want. And
The
so
players
I
want
hope
closer to, like, 30, right?
they came in at 27. I know there were some talks. I'm not sure if they agreed that they were willing to move to 24, but I know they at least were at 27.5. And so 15 is far from 27.5. And
Very, yeah.
yeah, I think they're just gonna have to it's gonna be a tough issue because the W has to split their profits amongst a lot more people, right? And it probably makes this issue a little bit difficult, but there will be no profit without the players. And so that's kind of not the players' problem. And so I really hope that they're able to really figure this out because the W is going up. It's going up. In this CBA, if this is going to be a 7 or 8 year CBA, this is important. It's not about matching where they're at now. It's projecting where they're going to be at in 8 years. And that's huge. And so I hope they're able to work
Yeah.
this out in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and I think that what you just said about the contract being for the next it's estimated to be like 7 to 8 years is really one of, if not the most important part of this. I think WNBA executives kinda want us to think about, right now,
Right.
but the players are smart, the union is smart, and they know, almost a decade from now, like, where will the W be? And thinking about that type of growth is, like, astronomical.
Hmm.
Just seeing how far we went from 2023 to now in
Right.
2026. So, yeah, and also, like you said, there is no league without the players. The players are the product, the service, and they have very much been underpaid and undervalued for a long time. So I think this is the perfect time for them to finally say like not anymore. Because if not now, the next time won't be for almost a decade.
And you just don't know. If you
And
have a spark like we've had
yeah,
over the last couple of years, you have to capitalize. You have to strike while the iron is hot, right? And so that's really important. And I think it's also important. I'm glad that you're having me on and, helping to bring light to this whole conversation because I think a part of another issue is the fact that because this CBA conversations are so complicated and sometimes they kind of go above the head of a lot of people by nature of it just being a confusing situation, I think the confusion sometimes cannot go in the favor of the players. And so I like to clarify that when we're talking about the difference between net revenue and gross revenue, it's very important to be on gross revenue or BRI, basketball related income. That's what the players want because the W's books are very convoluted. They have a lot of mixing with the NBA side. There's not a lot of clarity. I know even I've spoken to, players and members of the Players Association, and there's still not a lot of clarity. It's not as much clarity as there should be. And so when there's a lack of clarity, you don't want to wait till the W decides what their expenses are before you're paid. You want that gross revenue number, and that's really important. It's not about salaries because the numbers that are coming out, oh, they're going to be paid this and that. These players are not flipping out over salaries. They want the equity and they want what's right. And I think that's the message that needs to be out there. Because every single time we get news, they're like, "Oh, the players are going to be paid almost $1 million," and some people are like, "Yay!" It's not about that. It's about the
right.
percentage, the gross revenue, and and
The
and
full
getting
package.
full package. And I think that's important.
Yeah, and I'm really, really glad the players are definitely thinking that way too. And I love what you said too about how there is a lot of like, law jargon, you want to call it, a lot of like contract, confusing language that most people it like you said, it's just confusing and it's not easy to digest and understand. And I think that benefits the other side, right?
Right.
The executives benefit when people are confused, when they don't understand, and when there's not full transparency. So
Right.
leaving people in the dark, so they don't really know and understand the full picture. That's a strategy, I'll call a strategy on their end that has worked very well for them, but it's not working anymore. And I think that's
Right.
that's the big difference between this negotiation and past ones.
So true. So true.
Yeah. And I think, you having your platform and us speaking about this in our content and everything, it's helpful, right? There's more fans behind them. There's more social conversation pushing the right narrative forward, which is to pay the players.
Pay the players, and, I think we're all doing our best. There's still so much information that I'm not even privy to, right? I'm putting things together based on the information that's publicly available and the information that, we get from the players and we get from the Players Association. But, it is confusing by design. I think the lack of clarity on the numbers and, the lack of clarity all around is it people aren't confused because, they're not smart. They're confused because it's intentionally confusing. And so
Right.
I do my best to try to bring clarity where I can because I know it's intentionally confusing.
Yeah, that's another good point because I think there's been the narrative of like players aren't smart, the fans aren't smart enough, but there's like you said, there's a difference between someone not being smart and someone intentionally being left in the dark where they don't have access to certain information because it's being hidden from them essentially.
I do hope that it gets done when the deal is right, and if the season is affected, you're talking about temporary loss over a real long-term gain, and it's not just a gain for the W players, but the women's basketball moves the needle for so many sports, and so I just wanna say I commend NECA and Terry Carmichael Jackson, the executive director of the Players Association, and Fee and Stewie, Brianna Turner, all these people who are there day in and day out doing this work, Alicia Clark, I commend them. I think they're, it's heavy what they're dealing with because they know they're not only negotiating just for them, but for the players that haven't stepped foot in the league, for players that have not even stepped foot in college. They are negotiating for high school players right now who
Mhm.
if they go through 4 years will be affected by this. And they're also negotiating for the other sports that are around, women's softball that's coming up and the other leagues that are coming up because the WNBA moves the needle. And so
Yeah.
it's heavy for them, and I just send them love because I know this is difficult. This is really, really difficult.
Yeah. We definitely support them and like you said, if it means a strike or a delay in the season, we're fully behind them and by any means necessary to get the right deal that works for them. And I also really love what you said about, this affects other sports too. This is a historic deal. When they do eventually sign, it is going to affect, women's softball, women's hockey, some of the other sports that are much further behind in terms of, players getting paid well and getting benefits. So it will absolutely affect, other women's sports as well.
So true.
Now we're gonna transition into March Madness. Are you a big March Madness fan? Are you excited?
I am. I am. And over the last 3 something years, I have been almost exclusively watching women's college basketball. I just check men's basketball for my bracket. I'll do a bracket over there. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, March Madness was so good last year. It changed the trajectory of the draft. So many people popped up out of nowhere as far as the public was concerned and shot up the charts for the draft and March Madness. So, anything's possible. So I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think that the mindset anything is possible that March Madness brings, and then, of course, the upsets, the really close games, it just brings
Mhm.
so much excitement for us to look
Yes.
forward to that. Obviously, the regular season is exciting too, but there's just something really special about a March Madness.
Yes, so exciting.
Are you willing to share your Final Four predictions for the women's game?
Okay, so I know that UConn and South Carolina are gonna be there. What I'm interested to see is if UCLA lives up to the hype. They do have a walking WNBA future WNBA team on their starting lineup. So many of their seniors are projected to go to the W, and so I wanna see how they do. I wanna see how LSU does, and I just wanna see some of the other teams, but I'm very confident that we're gonna see UConn and South Carolina for sure in the Final Four. I'm just interested to see what other team kinda shoots up other than that. And I'm not sure, we'll see if that's UCLA. I think they're projected to be the top number 1 seed, maybe even. And so I'm really interested to see how their trajectory goes and if anyone's able to upset them.
I have similar teams. Texas maybe is interesting, and then also Vanderbilt has been quite interesting. So I'll definitely be keeping my eye on them. UConn, I think, is the very
Right.
obvious projected to win it all. Haven't lost this season. And I do agree with you about UCLA because if we look at their run last year, they underperformed of what people expected, I would say. So I know they've done really well this regular season. So it'll also be interesting to see, if if they can redeem themselves a bit more for this tournament. And that's to say they had a good run last year. Obviously, they were a
Right.
top team. They made it very far, but when it got to, the final stretch, their game was underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I think being the top if they end up being the top one number 1 seed, people would expect them to be in the actual championship, and that's where I'm like, I don't know. There's so many other teams that may not even be ranked as high that are really feisty, have a lot of heart.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's but I just know the way UConn is playing, UConn and just yeah, I just know they're gonna be there. It'd be interesting though to see with the fact that they haven't lost. It's always weird when when you don't experience a loss and you don't know what you need to work on fully. To see how that translates to the tournament. But I know they're gonna be there. It's in the champion.
Yeah, and then, yeah, you're playing, most likely completely different teams that you haven't seen during your
Right.
regular season schedule, so hoping some of these teams give UConn some competition so the games are a little bit more
Yes.
closer, a little more
Yeah.
entertaining, not so much blowouts. We know those aren't as fun for the fans, but probably fun for UConn.
Right.
Um and then I would say South Carolina is another interesting one to mention because obviously we know they lost to Texas for the SEC tournament, which I guess it wasn't that surprising because they were pretty neck and neck, but it wasn't a close game by any means. So
No,
it'll
yeah.
be very interesting to see how they come back from losing the SEC tournament to now the March Madness run. Does that kind of give them the fuel to have a really deep run, or do we continue to see, the issues that we saw in that game against Texas?
Yeah, I think they knew why they lost that game. They came off of a really gritty win with the LSU game, and I know so many people like to say LSU and South Carolina aren't rivals because South Carolina always wins. Well, what I would say is the way they prepare for those games, the way they play those games doesn't say the same. You know, South Carolina definitely has got the best of the rivalry but they were so locked into the LSU game that it seemed like when they got to the Texas game, it mentally it just they were a little checked out. I think during the tournament, that's just not going to be the case. I think they know why they lost. We all could tell why they lost. That was the craziest opening to a game for South Carolina. Let Texas go on a 14-0 run. I don't think we're going to see that again. And I think Texas was like, "Yay, great for us," but I don't think we're going to see that again. And
Yeah,
so I'm not too concerned. But Texas did look
yeah.
great. They came out punching. They look good.
I don't think Dawn will allow that more than once. Texas too, though, they have been a little bit up and down this season. Same with LSU. That's why I feel like the
Yeah.
tournament, like we're kind of going into this, and it's like outside of UConn, we'll remove UConn from the conversation. Everyone else, it's kind of like up in the air, like anything could happen. Even with, LSU, if LSU and South Carolina end up matching up again at some point, LSU is closing in on getting closer to beating South Carolina. I think that's something that Kim talked about. Obviously disappointing to lose that many games in a row. But it does feel like they're getting closer to beating them.
LSU would be the scariest team if I was an opponent to see in the tournament because they're like this close to mentally playing all four quarters, mentally not checking out. And we've seen them where all of their stars weren't even locked in at the same time. We've seen games where Malaysia was playing well and then Michaela Williams was just somewhere over there, sometimes even on the bench. We've seen games where Malaysia was playing and Michaela wasn't even playing or games that Flage's playing well, and Michaela's playing well, but Malaysia's not playing well, or all the different combinations. The scariest thing is to see a game where all of the stars are playing well, on top of Jada Richard in their bigs as well, and they don't check out and they don't fall apart. I mean, the tournament will be a really interesting time to kind of put that all together but if they put that all together, especially you're this is gonna be Flage's last game, last tournament. They're
Yeah.
scary. They would be the team I would not want to see because you just don't know what you're gonna get, and that would terrify
Yeah,
me.
that's really interesting. Yeah, because we know they have the talent, but again, it's like, can all the players at once show up? And I feel like if Flage starts, leads the pack with, having an amazing performance, I think to me, she would be the X factor. She's the
Yeah.
point guard, she's the the veteran senior, and I know during the regular season she hasn't quite performed to maybe what was expected. So this would be the perfect time for her to turn it up.
Yeah. And I expect she will. So LSU is scary. I'm not sure on my bracket. I'm going against them because they're scary.
Yeah.
So they're the X factor team. I think them, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. Those are kind of some of the SEC teams. I'm kind of interested to see how they play out. I think they're going to be pretty good.
And I will say with LSU too, they also have really good underclassmen that are getting like solid minutes. So I would even say a couple of years from now, they would also, be a scary team to match up against.
100% agree.
We're gonna transition into NBA. So this is
Okay.
our final segment, NBA finals. Any predictions for who you think will be in the finals?
Well, now we see that Jason Tatum is back, and so the Celtics are kind
Yeah.
of on their run. I mean, he's a superhero. I mean, I know he said he was coming back, but everyone was kind of like, eh. Um,
Yeah. It seems
and
early. I'm curious what you think about that because I think like 10 months is like almost unheard of from an Achilles tear to come back.
with his regimen and what he was doing, I think he fully prepared for this comeback. It seemed like this is a goal of his, and if anybody can do it, I guess he can do it. Hopefully, he
Okay.
took all the time that he needs, but yeah, he was aggressive in his comeback, and it seemed like he spent his entire kind of living, waking, breathing into this comeback, and so it's great to see him back. This is not the same Celtics team though. And so I definitely would love to see Detroit coming out of the East. I think it's their time, and that would make me the most happy. I'll lock in for that. Coming out of the East. Out of the West, I'm not sure. I think no one ever knows. Out of the West, no one ever
Yeah.
knows. I don't know, but I would love to see Detroit coming out of the East.
Okay.
What about you? I would interested in
So
what you think.
yeah, for the East, I was up Boston, obviously, the Cavs. And yeah, I agree about the Pistons just because like they've been so bad for so long. It would definitely be very, very cool. They're also close proximity to Chicago. That would be cool to see them make a finals appearance. And then in the West, I would say obviously we have OKC, the reigning champs.
Yeah,
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, top contender for MVP. So I definitely would not write them out. Can they do it back to back now? We know that's less
it's
common,
hard.
but I personally would like to see the Spurs. So Victor and the Spurs making a finals run, I think that could be really exciting. The Spurs
I know
haven't been.
they're in the mix, so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I think like obviously logistically it makes sense to say OKC, but from a personal standpoint, I would like to see the Spurs in the finals.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And Wemby is just good basketball. And he
Yeah.
cares. Like he really cares, and yeah, that would be fun. Honestly, the Spurs Detroit would be a lot of fun. Like it's like the new kids,
Mm.
the newbies. I hope they make that
Yeah.
happen. What they said, the NBA gods make that happen. Detroit and the Spurs would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so MVP run for regular season. Who you got? I know the top 3 right now are like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Joker, obviously, he's just like always on that list. And then I think Victor actually for the first time is like top 3, I wanna say, because we know we call him the alien, he's doing things we've never seen before, but now it's been a couple of years in the league, so he's in the MVP race.
I guess we're gonna have to see as it gets closer. I wonder how the Spurs end up shaking out. I feel like they just give it to Shea again. It probably makes the most sense. I don't see them giving it to Jokic again, unless the Nuggets just do something crazy.
They do take into account, how well your team does by the end of the season too, right?
Yeah,
There's multiple things that are taken into account as well as, your fan base. I feel like SGA, I don't know, has a larger fan base. People love his fits too, like his
yeah,
style is awesome. The Joker, outside of basketball, I just know like those dancing videos, he likes horses.
yeah,
Kind of a silly guy, but I feel like SGA, his influence too outside of basketball has been really cool to see.
yeah. He's really growing kind of following, and people, especially guys really love Shea. They really. So I think they would be happy if he got it. But if Wemby is able to really conclude with an MVP type of season and the Spurs are up
Yeah.
there, I think that would be an interesting conversation.
What I will say is like even if Wemby doesn't win it this year, he's gonna win it at some point.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
he
that's
is.
obvious. Whether
He's
it's
been
this
playing
year or
amazing.
next year. Yeah. Watching him play, the things that he does, just incredible. And
And
he
the way
seems
he
like you
kinda
said.
turned the All-Star game around, like, he actually made the All-Star game. Him and Kawhi, I was like, "Thank you. You guys are actually, like, trying," so they owe him something for that alone. He really made that All-Star game interesting.
Yeah, he seems like a really great guy, really great teammate, just really, really down to earth. I know he's dabbling or he's very into, like, Buddhism,
Mhm.
trained with some monks during the off season. He moves differently
He
than what we've seen
does.
of NBA stars, and then obviously he's French, so he's not even American, so he's already gonna be a little bit different.
That he walks to the beat of his own drum, so
Yeah.
need more of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, if we're gonna have an NBA star that we platform, it's like he seems like a great guy.
Yes, because not every well, yes.
Yeah. So I just have one last question for you.
Mhm.
The show is called Hoops and Healing, so I like to ask everyone at the end of the show, what is your favorite healing practice present in your life right now?
I would say a mix between working out, so running. I love running clears my mind, and it's both hard and pushes the body, but kinda clears your mind. So I would say running and playing basketball is really healing for me, both of those things. That's how I escape. It's when my mind turns off. And
Yeah.
sometimes when your mind is so busy, literally you just need something that can turn your mind off. And I would say those two things really bring me just a lot of peace. And if not that, then traveling and seeing things and exploring, that's always great for me when I'm able to just unplug a little bit. I don't think there's funny enough, I don't think there's anything that's more healing than just being in the gym, playing basketball, or being on the concrete and just running, seeing where your 2 feet take you. It's so peaceful for me. So
Yeah.
I love
You
that
s
question.
you said ball is life.
It is. It is.
Ball is
Even
life.
when you get older, it's still so much fun.
I definitely agree with you there. Just, when there's a lot going on in our lives and in the world, our thoughts can be overwhelming. So having
Yeah.
something that, you could focus on really, I think what it comes down to when you're working out, when you're running, you're focusing on something other than yourself,
Right.
or your problems. And so your brain can kind of turn off for a second. So I
Yeah.
think that's really wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed having you on.
Thanks for having me. I never get a chance to, answer some of the questions that you asked me or even think them through, and so I appreciate the questions and the opportunity to share, honestly, so I appreciate it.